Out of Order Gun Rights Podcast, episode 39.
Welcome to the Out of Order Podcast, your window into the firearms community, exploring those shaping the future of our rights and protecting our lifestyle, laws, legal cases, activism, and self-defense in a candid and honest podcast for our brothers and sisters in arms. Here's your host, James Kalita.
Thanks for tuning in to episode 39 of the Out of Order Gun Rights Podcast, sponsored by NagYourRep.com. Annoy an anti-gunner, embrace your inner gun nut, and do your part to keep America great by regularly, consistently, and automatically reminding your elected representatives to defend the Second Amendment, oppose gun control, and do all this for free. Today's guest is Charles Heller. Charles is from the Arizona Citizens Defense League and host of Liberty Watch Radio. And now, here's Charles.
Charles Heller, welcome to the show.
Thank you, James. It's nice to be on your podcast.
Thank you. And Charles, you're one of the co-founders of the Arizona Citizens Defense League. Would you tell us a bit about that?
Sure. A number of us were chatting over email back in 2004 about how there wasn't really an effective gun lobby in Arizona. Although Arizona was firearms friendly, there were a lot of things that needed to be changed, and the local affiliate, we had the Arizona State Rifle and Pistol Association, which was mostly an NRA affiliate group, and not really, I mean, they did have lobbyists, but only occasionally would somebody bother to go to the legislature, and nobody really ran a bill that they wanted to have and proposed it to several legislators and helped them get it passed. There was no effective gun lobby in Arizona, and so I decided to form a group. There were 8 of us originally, boiled down to 6, and then eventually 4, and the 4 of us met together at a 5 and Diner over the summer, and we formed in 2005, and we incorporated, and we each pitched in $300, and we formed the organization. That's how we did it.
Wow, right. And so, I mean, Arizona comes up as like the best place for gun owners on almost every list.
Right.
Is there?
Because of us, mostly.
Oh, okay. All right. I was going to say, what is there for you to do?
Sincere.
Yeah.
It is because of us. We've had 61 laws signed by 3 governors over the last 13 years, and they were all good. Not a one of them was bad. Not a one of them was a bad bill. Every single bad bill suffered what we euphemistically call a crib death in lobbying. Got strangled.
Ah, okay, gotcha. So, and I mean, I saw that you guys stopped some bad bills from going through too. Is it how far do they get? Are they
damn near passing? Even in the friendliest state, even in the friendliest state in the union on the right to keep and bear arms. You know, people think the hardcore people, the ones that actually speak a good fight and actually do nothing, that Arizona's never going to pass gun laws, and they do. People who say that don't understand how the process works. You know, the magic formula is 31, 16, and 1. You need 31 representatives, 16 senators, and 1 governor to sign it. And that's what it takes to get a law passed, period. Yep. And if you've got those numbers, your law passes. And if you don't, it doesn't. What people don't understand is that if a bad bill, and it almost did, we had a school safety bill that was horrendous. It had one of the most strident stop order provisions in it possible, and we were able to get it. We were excluded from the negotiations. I found out through some, actually I went to a Rotary meeting and I met with the director of the Department of Public Safety along with a number of other people, and I found out there was a stakeholders meeting coming of all the interested parties about school safety. And guess what interested party they left out?
Right, all the Second Amendment people.
Yeah. Well,
yeah.
Us, anyway.
Yeah.
And the point of the matter being that they excluded us. They came up with this. It didn't even have a law. It was a 14-page PDF that was pretty awful. And then the bill was 52 pages. And the sponsor was one of our guys that's usually pretty strong on Second Amendment. And at which point we blew the whistle and we started, we used our Engage system to notify people. And somewhere between 34,000 and 37,000 emails went to the legislators and the governors saying, hey, don't do this. And in Arizona, when you have a 37,000 block of voters, That's significant. That amount of voters, if you break off any piece of it and put it in any one district in Arizona, that can make an election go one way or the other. And so they have a tendency to be listened to. And we were able to get enough sand into the gears to get them to grind to a halt. And eventually, what happened was our Republicans. By the way, the problem is not the Democrats. The problem is Republicans who lose their spine and won't vote to uphold the Constitution, especially the Constitution of Arizona, which is a very much more specific, if I may quote it, Article 2, Section 26, more specific than the Second Amendment to the U.S. Constitution. Article 2, Section 26 says, the right of the individual citizen to bear arms in defense of self or state shall not be impaired. Much more specific and stringent provision, constitutional protection. And yet you got people who don't understand what the stated purpose of government is in Arizona, which is Article 2, Section 2, says that all power is inherent in the people and that the purpose of government is to protect the rights of the individual citizen. And when people don't know that, when they don't know it, we tend to cause them to be to come into full and harsh contact with the stated purpose of government. That's what AZCDL does. So. We had a number of people that wrote to the legislators and to the governor and said, "Hey, don't do this." And at which point they finally invited us to the table, and we were able to negotiate out about 95, 97% of the bad stuff that was in the bill. At which point we went neutral because we still weren't going to support gun control, but we went neutral. If it had passed, all it would have done is ended up mirroring the existing statute on mental health, which says, in essence, that if I'm going on too long, if it says, in essence, that if you believe someone is a danger to themselves or the community, there's a 72-hour process you can go through, and if they truly are a danger, they can be involuntarily pulled in for evaluation for 3 days, and if it turns out they are a danger to themselves, there's a procedure in state law in Title 36, specifically Parts 520 through 526, that say you can incarcerate somebody against their will for mental health reasons if they're a true danger to themselves or society. If that's true, they automatically become a prohibited possessor per the 1968 Gun Control Act. Right. All you got to do is have the county attorney ask the U.S. attorney for a warrant based upon the probable cause that the person's a prohibited possessor. Get a warrant, go take their guns. If following the Constitution, I don't think there's very many people on the right to keep and bear arms side that says you should let a dangerous lunatic have access to firearms. I don't think there's very many of those out there. Maybe there's a few strident absolutists, but there's certainly a very tiny little sliver of the right to keep and bear arms movement. And I don't think the founding fathers, if you'd asked George Washington, should a crazy, dangerous nut be allowed to hold his own guns, I think Washington and Jefferson and all the other guys that were the founders would have said, no, you can go over to his house and take them as long as you get a warrant. Yep. I can't see Thomas Jefferson, who was the founder that was probably most fond of our liberties, I can't see Thomas Jefferson saying no to that. Yeah, I'd have a hard time seeing him say that too. Right. And of course your mileage may vary. You may believe that our rights are absolutely absolute. There's no variance whatsoever, and enjoy your quill and ink pen. Your quill and inkwell, if you believe that. And so, you can go back to writing letters.
Right. Yeah. And actually, if you write letters, that's good because so many of the activists out there, they'll post on Facebook, but they won't write letters. And
as far as I'm concerned, if you post stuff on Facebook, you're just helping Facebook. I don't have it. I call them Twitbook and Facer. And I do have a Twitter account. I usually forget to tweet or twit or whatever you call it. Maybe once every 6 months I send something out.
Oh, okay. So you said 37,000. What was the secret of growing the organization to that size?
That's a really good question, James. Hard work is what originally it took us for the first 4 years of the organization. The four board members went to every gun show we could drag our sorry backsides to. And we set up a table. I'm in the advertising specialty business, or I was. I still own the company, but it's not active. But the point of the matter is that I got banners made up. I knew where to get them wholesale, and I never, I only charge the organization wholesale for them. I got us bumper stickers to give out and business cards. So when we set up at the table, we had our logo on everything. We had hats, we had shirts. I don't think we had hats yet. We had shirts, we had this and that. When we showed up at the table, we were an organization. You could see that we were an organization. And all the rule lines on our forms were straight, and, you know, it was all done by volunteer labor. But everything about us showed that we were real and we existed. And then in our first year, we had a legislative success. We were able to get the enhanced Castle Doctrine passed in 2006 in our first year, and we also got added to that the presumption of innocence, the presumption of reasonableness. The presumption of reasonableness had been removed from Arizona law in 1996 because of a couple of tough cases in Phoenix. And what happened was, if you used any force in self-defense, and you called the police and they showed up and they said, "What happened?" You said, "Well, this guy threatened me, you know, to cut my head off, and he pulled out a big knife, so I shot him." The next 4 words you heard were, "You are under arrest." The reason is because the affirmative defenses have been removed from Arizona's law. We succeeded in getting them specifically reinstalled in Arizona's law, and in our first year we were recognized as the grassroots organization of the year nationally by the Second Amendment Foundation at the Gun Rights Policy Conference.
Wow,
doing that.
That's quite an honor. Yeah, and that's quite an accomplishment. Things get stuck, in my experience, in legislatures. They tend not to move quickly, and to do something like that quickly is great.
Well, it was part of the ordinary legislative process. We don't write laws. What we do is we have proposals, and we give them to legislators, and the legislators give them to their legislative council, and their lawyers actually write the laws. You know, we have models, sometimes based on what other states do, or sometimes based on on ideas of what should be in the law, and we present that to them, and then they write the actual statutes. And then we help get other, we don't give money to anybody. Some people think that's what lobbying is. Maybe at the federal level it may be, I don't know. We only work at the Arizona level, and I can tell you we don't give money to nobody. We run an organization. We have 15,000 members, and we spend less than $350,000 a year. There's no paid staff whatsoever. It's all volunteers, and we have booths in every gun show and tea party and any other place we can go in the state, all over the state. And we have an annual dinner coming up with 500 people, all with loaded guns on their hips. Come to this dinner. It's an open carry dinner. And we have this wonderful banquet once a year where we celebrate what we do and fulfill a bylaw requirement to meet. And only members are invited.
Oh, okay. Wow.
Media is not invited unless they're a member.
Okay.
So anyway, but that's what we do, and that's how we do it, and that's what it is.
Oh, and so I read on one of the goals that you wanted to get restaurant carry approved. Is that you can't carry firearm with you into a restaurant in Arizona?
You can carry a firearm. We've never had any prohibition. There is a prohibition against carrying any deadly weapon into a place that serves liquor where you can consume it by open container. That was not our bill, and we, of course, supported it. That was the NRA's bill, and that was not ours. It's pretty convoluted. The way it is now is that you can carry a firearm into a place that doesn't have a sign that says no weapons there, provided you're not consuming alcohol. That's the way the law reads now. Gotcha. But it doesn't matter. But there's no percent. It's not like Texas where it's the percentage of what they serve being food or liquor. This says any place with a liquor establishment, any place that's licensed to serve liquor. As long as you have a concealed weapons permit, and as long as they don't have a sign prohibiting, and as long as you're not consuming, and as long as it's concealed and it's a handgun, not a rifle, shotgun, or machine gun, you can legally carry it concealed into a place that serves alcohol, provided you're not consuming. And that passed a number of years ago, I think in 2009. And again, that was the NRA's bill, not ours.
Gotcha. Okay.
I'm going to give credit where credit is due.
Yes. Yeah. There we go. And so you also have a radio program. Would you tell us a little about that?
I have 3. I have a program called Swap Shop, which is the unregulated free market. People can call in and buy and sell and trade anything they want as long as it's lawful and moral. Lawful means it doesn't violate the laws of man, and moral means it doesn't violate the laws of God. And people call in 3 or 4 calls a week are firearms. I have no restriction. I remind people about how to trade lawfully in firearms. And but there's all kinds of other things. It is the unregulated free market governed only by common courtesy and common sense. There's no rules. There's very few rules. And then the other thing, the next show is called Liberty Watch. It's about maintaining a free country and making sure government remains servant, not master. Not from a left-right perspective. It's from a right-wrong perspective and a liberty-based. And then it's based on the notion that an informed electorate needs good information that doesn't put them to sleep, even the commercials. So I'm my own producer. I make all the comedy bits. I make all the commercials. I use various voice talents from the radio station. I'm a producer. And so if there's a book and there's an author has a book, I read the whole book cover to cover before the interview. And I'm one of the few hosts that does that. And then the last hour is called America Armed and Free. I wrote the theme music for it. It's called The Guardian. And I am the guardian of America, armed and free. Anyway, it's about things with a muzzle, a nozzle, or a blade. And some of it is from my perspective of 24 years of teaching the Arizona Concealed Weapons Certified Instructor as a Arizona Concealed Weapons Permit Instructor. And then I'm the lead instructor for the last 11 years at the largest gun shop in Tucson. And then I also have the radio program where I do a lot of research. Sometimes I have manufacturers on. Sometimes I have right to keep and bear arms topics. Yesterday I had a guy who was a POW in Vietnam, helicopter pilot, bad crash, barely crawled out of it alive, had a broken back, and they walked him on a broken back all the way from South Vietnam all the way north to Hanoi, a 90-day hike to Hanoi to get imprisoned in the Hanoi Hilton on a broken back. The grit that man has, his name is Reeder, Colonel Reeder. And he came out of it. He got a waiver for medical reasons, and he flew helicopters for the next 27 years in the Army. And he's got a wonderful book, Through the Valley, My Captivity in Vietnam. And I had him on for a whole hour, read his book cover to cover. We had a probative discussion of it. So that's the kind of thing I do.
Yeah, that's impressive that you read the books cover to cover. That's the one thing that's kept me from bringing authors on. You know, I every time I go to email one, I'm like, I got to read this book, and I read slow.
I do too. I just sit my butt in a chair and read. Although I've taught myself how to read faster. My grandfather taught me that, though. He said I'd bring him a math question in chapter 6, and he'd ask me a question out of the first page of the book. I go, we're on chapter 6. He said, You don't know page 1, you don't know chapter 6. And it taught me a valuable lesson. He called it Sitzfleisch, butt meat. You sit in that chair and you read the book. When you think you know the answer, you go back to page 1 and look at the questions and make sure you can answer those. Now you know something. You don't have to know everything. I sure don't know everything. I come across sometimes because I use a lot of foot-and-a-half long words, the Latin phrases, sesquipedalian words. Because I use a lot of foot-and-a-half long words, people think that I'm condescending, but what it is I try to be knowledgeable. And some people, who feel inadequate think that's condescension.
Well, Charles, I ask all of my guests if there's any books they recommend. I know you just mentioned one, but are there books out there that you recommend all gun owners read?
I think about that. I thought about that since you approached me for this interview, and I'm going to tell you, if gun owners do not read Saul Alinsky's Rules for Radicals, they're going to get outmaneuvered, outfoxed, and if unlucky, imprisoned. You need to know what the enemy thinks. And be very clear, I'm not calling everybody an enemy. I'm just suggesting to you that there are some few people out there, the Bloombergs of the world, the other people, pardon the profanity, there are some people out there who are willing to use any technique to get the end justifies the means. And if you read Alinsky's Rules for Radicals, you will understand what the means are that are used against you. And, there's a time to be polite and civil. There really is, and it's most of the time. But when you are dealing with an Alinskyite, someone who's willing to use the techniques and tools in Rules for Radicals against your freedom, You need to know how to respond to those people. You need to know what they're doing, and you need to be able to do what I call, you need to practice what I call tailpiped carburetorism. Tailpiped carburetorism involves learning the laws and learning the techniques so that when they attempt to choke you, you take their tailpipe, stuff it down their carburetor, and force them to choke on their own exhaust without breaking any laws and without being stupid and saying, "Oh, we will not comply." What an idiot way to lose your rights and look bad doing it. What you need to do is you need to learn to use the laws, and you need to use the system that's there, and you need to join with others and not be, the Japanese have a thing, one stick is easily broken, a bundle of sticks is hard to break, something I'm paraphrasing. You need to be part of the bundle of sticks that's sticking up for our right to keep and bear arms. Don't try and go and fight the system all by yourself. Look at that Supreme Court decision called Heller versus District of Columbia. Different Heller, I'm not related to him, okay?
Yep.
Nick Heller did not go out and give the middle finger to the city of Washington, D.C. Nick Heller joined a group of people that were in a lawsuit. He was the only one that survived withstanding of the lawsuit, which used to be called Parker. And he followed the advice of counsel. His counsel was Dane von Breckenrukert. And von Breckenrukert, common spelling, von Breckenrukert told him, you go down to D.C. and you take their form and you fill out the form to register a gun and you make them give you in writing the rejection. That was the only reason that Heller versus District of Columbia got to the Supreme Court, is Dick Heller had standing when everyone else didn't. And you go do that. You go join with a group. Bob Levy put up $500,000 or $600,000 of his own money and funded that effort, that lawsuit that Alan Gura spearheaded that went to the Supreme Court. And do not go out and try and do this on your own, or you will end up with a bad precedent named after you, like Ohio versus Terry. Okay?
Yeah. Yeah.
You'll end up with a case named after you that puts your right to keep and bear arms and every other right in the dirt. Don't go out there and wave a red flag at the bull, daring it to come and run into you. What you need to do is you need to surround the bull with using the laws that are already there, and surround the bull and get the bull either back down or done for. But that's how you fight the system. Don't go out there and be the Lone Ranger. There's a reason the Lone Ranger was alone. Even the Lone Ranger wasn't that alone. He had Tonto.
Right.
Don't go out there and be the Lone Ranger. That's stupid.
Right. And Charles, where can people find you?
Under a rock somewhere, I think.
Oh.
I think LibertyWatchRadio.com for me. Hang on.
Okay.
LibertyWatchRadio.com if you want to listen to the program. The Liberty hours in the left column, the right to keep and bear arms hours in the right column. It's LibertyWatchRadio.com/recent_shows_. But just LibertyWatchRadio.com, scroll down on the left side, you'll see the recent shows tab, and that's where you can get my program. And the organization is AZCDL.org, stands for Arizona Citizens Defense League.org, AZCDL.org. And you can join, you can be a member. We have members from all 50 states. We even let in people from the People's Republic, the PRC of California. We have people from north of the border, up in Kazakhstan. We have a machine gun dealer in England who's a member.
Oh,
I mean,
nice.
We've got all kinds of folks, and we don't care your creed, your color. What we care about is you believe in freedom. It's a gigantic contribution of $30 a year to be a member, or $50 a year. You're a sustaining member. It means you want to sustain us. You get a really cool T-shirt and our eternal gratitude for a whole year. Or you can be a life member, and then you just get our unreserved eternal gratitude.
Oh, okay. Great. Well, Charles, I thank you very much for coming on the show. Any parting words for our listeners?
Yeah, you can never get anywhere in advancing freedom by penalizing the innocent for the acts of the guilty, and that's what the other side tries to do, is penalize us, the law-abiding, for what the bad folks do. And it's dancing in the blood of the victims. And when you see people do it, you need to call them out on it. There's one other thing I want to emphasize. The next time you see a news organization publish the name or the photograph of the perpetrator of a mass casualty event, call them out on it. Write to the editor. Write to the sponsors and tell them, don't tell them you'll boycott. Tell them, I wish you would tell the people who you give money to that you don't want them publicizing evil. That's part of the DIE initiative. Don't inspire evil. And it's put out by JPFO, Jews for the Preservation of Firearms Ownership. You ought to have them on.
Yeah, I've got to reach out to them.
You did? I'm the spokesman.
Oh, no, I said I have to. I have to reach out to them. But I haven't yet.
Anyway, the point of the matter is that the DIE initiative is don't inspire evil. When the part of the reason that these mass killers do what they do is to die, to be known in infamy. Well, instead let them die in obscurity. People should not know the names of the perpetrators at Columbine, and they do, and don't say it. And people should not know the names of the perpetrator in Tucson, and most of the people here do know. They forget about the victims, Christina Taylor Greene and Zimmerman and Judge Roll. They forget the names of the victims, but they know the names of the perpetrators. It should be the opposite of that. We should not erase from history, but we should forget the evildoers and remember the victims. And to the extent we don't do that, and to the extent that media publishes and glorifies these people who do that, to that extent they have an incentive. And you ought to criticize publicly, use Facebook, use social media, and say, don't do that. It's wrong. And some media has been responsible. My radio station, the people here will not say the name of the perpetrator.
That's good. Yeah, that's excellent.
Hold these people's feet to the fire. This is something you can do as an individual or as a group of individuals. You can come together and help reduce the violence by encouraging the media to stop fueling the violence.
Yeah, that is excellent advice.
Okay.
Well, Charles, I thank you for coming on, and look forward to talking to you again soon.
My pleasure. azcdl.org.
Thanks for tuning in to the Out of Order Gun Rights Podcast. Today's show notes page will be outoforderjameskalita.com/Charles. And please remember, we offer this ad spot to nonprofit organizations that would like to promote their events. So if you know of a organization that has an event coming up, have them shoot me an email about 30 days in advance, and we'll get them a mention on the show. You can also help the show out by visiting the show notes page and using the Amazon affiliate links. You can shop through Amazon, help out the show at no additional cost to yourself, and you'll also find links to Liberty Classroom, where you'll get the history and economics education they didn't teach you in high school. Out of Order, James Kalita, and we'll see you next time.